Here we are with another episode of the Performance Prescription Lab podcast to discuss popular health and performance topics and bust common myths using science. In this episode, we will bust a single myth that athletes usually think that they need to get bigger, stronger, and faster, and what matters only is what happens in the gym, on the field, or when training. In reality, what athletes fail to realize is that training breaks the body down, while a period of recovery afterwards is what builds the body back up. You actually get bigger, stronger, and faster by recovering from the training. Not prioritizing recovery between sessions or competitions could lead to poor performance. So let's explore the multifaceted aspects of recovery, exploring the foundations that go beyond exercise alone. Whether you're a pro athlete, weekend warrior, or just someone keen on optimizing their recovery routines, we explore the science behind effective post-exercise and race recovery strategies. I know as an athlete, a lifelong athlete, I wish there was one piece of advice I got or at least knew about recovery, and it was really that, training adds up and that recovery is actually when I got stronger and that I didn't need to push more in the gym, and sometimes sleeping and eating better would make up for is better than an extra training session. So Nilham, what is your advice to your younger self about recovery that you wish you knew?
Well, as a younger athlete, I wish I'd known that sleep is one of the foundations of the recovery. I
Yep.
was always undermining sleep, underestimating of its impact, and you tend to sleep less because you have a more active life and you have more energy somehow. But there are certain periods that I should have slept more. But nevertheless, it's not too late, and we can give this advice to the athletes from now, so that they don't have the same feelings like we have.
True,
And
true.
as I speak about sleep, I think I can start sharing with some of the aspects of sleep on the importance of recovery. Recovery is like a pyramid, and it's built on the foundation of nutrition, hydration, and sleep. So today we are going to discuss these aspects together with Jess. These three areas have the potential for the greatest impact that an athlete can focus on improving performance. And again, for me as a younger athlete, I wish I knew that. It's so important. I overlooked it. I underappreciated as a recovery tool of the importance of sleep, because the quality and quantity of sleep is essential for athlete performance and recovery. Interestingly, the research on elite athletes suggests that their sleep quality, quantity, or both are often less than optimal, and that improvement in sleep is warranted in many of the athletes. I'm sure you've been hearing the same from the athletes you've been working with. I hear it more and more. Sleep is a common issue, and we'll give some tips to help to overcome this issue for many athletes. Let's look at a recent study. In South Africa, there has been a recent research that was done with 800 elite athletes. 75% were not getting at least 8 hours of sleep per night. So for adults, it's 7 to 8 hours per night as the optimum sleep duration. And 75% were not getting. It's a big research. The sample is huge. So this gives us some understanding of the issue in a context. And alarmingly, they also found 11% were not even getting 6 hours of sleep nightly. Getting less than 6 hours of sleep per night is when your health and performance can start to nosedive. So consecutively, if you continue being sleep deprived, you're going to see the impact of performance. And whatever you do, I think this is the most important tool. Sleep is the most important tool. So that's not going to support the other aspects you are putting into effort for your performance. Lack of quality and enough sleep, even a few hours for a few nights, has negatively affected almost every area of performance. This includes speed, endurance, strength, power, injury risk, immunity, attention, decision making, learning, and so on. And lack of sleep can also impact hormone levels, such as testosterone and growth factor. So in a study, 10 young men whose sleep was restricted from 8 hours a night to 5, their daytime testosterone levels decreased by 10 to 15%. So all these can have negative impacts on performance, health, and even muscle growth. From this point, we can also say if you're sleep deprived, if you're not getting enough sleep, this can make the difference between winning and losing for your performance. And we spoke about getting queries about athletes about being sleep deprived and how to overcome this. So let's understand the common reasons. What are some of the most common reasons you hear from athletes lacking of sleep, Jess?
I think the number one thing I hear is basically just like the busy schedule and their commitments to training, to life, maybe a career, to family, to everything. I would say sleep. I mean, time commitments and a busy schedule are probably the number one thing. And probably the next thing I hear is just their training and times that they train. So some of my athletes are like, they may swim before school, they may do cardio or strength training before school and then practice after school. So it is trying to balance. Again, it kind of goes back to the busy schedule, the balancing, and when can they get everything to fit in. What about you, Nilhan?
Well, the most common reason when I found out is consuming excessive amount of caffeine.
True.
We talked about this in our first episode. Here it comes again. So caffeine consumption there has to be a rational caffeine consumption, and understanding how much caffeine you consume, you ingest, whether you're a coffee drinker or you have it's in your pre-workout. There are other stimulants that will be using, like other herbal supplements. For example, rhodiola is a stimulant, or you're not aware that you are consuming green tea. It also has caffeine in it. So when I question, I usually get the answer that they are consuming caffeinated products closer to sleep. So this impacts their sleep. They're happy with the ergogenic impact of caffeine, but with the risk of being sleep deprived. So sometimes I suggest, if they really like to drink coffee, I suggest decaffeinated options, or simply taking caffeine out of the consumption equation after 2-3 p.m. That's one of the reasons.
I feel like a lot of athletes don't think about caffeine being a reason for their sleep issue. So I feel like that's one of those things when you start working with athletes that you start looking at and can pinpoint it where they may not actually realize the tie between say like a 2 or 4 o'clock afternoon pre-workout and then it affecting their sleep later. So yeah, that's a huge part. What are some of the other things you think? I mean, I've heard, a lot of athletes get sleep deprived with travel. Say they're competitive athletes and they're traveling maybe across the country, maybe across the world, and having to deal with time zone changes and jet lag and competing at different times in different parts of the world. So that would not be, I would say, a long term, but even as you described in your studies, short term, couple days of decreased sleep can really impact performance. Are there other reasons that you've heard or you kind of think about for athletes these days of being less than optimal sleep?
Yeah, I'm going to speak about blue light exposure,
huge.
our phones. But before, travel and jet lag is an interesting thing I came across this year, following Formula One, and I saw their competition schedule this year and the past season basically. and they were traveling from one continent to another. So it was the worst schedule I've seen. So I was sorry for all the Formula One pilots. And I read like how they overcome. They are humans in the end. They are not robots. So they were putting a lot of effort with their medical team just to overcome the travel jet lag. Of course, they have few days in between the competition, so they arrive, but it's quite taxing in my opinion. So I felt sorry for Formula One pilots, but anyway. And the other aspect is, I think, use of social media, video games, computers, mobile phones, the blue light, getting exposed to blue light at bedtime delays the release of melatonin. So it's basically pushes your sleep time to further. So of course, this is like a epidemic now, the use of phones, laptops, and other blue light releasing devices. It's hard to say no, don't use it, because, for example, I'm using a meditation app. It's in my phone. What can I do?
Right.
It's kind of, you cannot say no, you can't use it. So I found this helpful. I'm using the functions of my phone and devices that it dims the blue light.
Yep.
At least that's one way. And then I'm using blue light blocking goggles. It's basically, even if I don't have any problems with my eyes, but there are these goggles that are sold purposefully that blocks the blue light. So it's something I also try to use and recommend to athletes if they can't get away from the device, but at least like half an hour, 45 minutes before the sleep, it's good to leave the phone out.
Yeah.
With
I like
these
to just try and pick up, I try to keep my phone, keep it away from next to my bed. So I have to put it down. I usually put mine in the kitchen. And so it makes me get up. But then when I'm in bed, I can either journal or read like an actual paper book.
Old school.
That still exists, but it kind of gives me at least a little bit of time before bed. But I do agree with you. It's hard when you do want to do like a breathing technique or a meditation app before bed. You have to most people go onto their phone to get the app or listen to it. So it is kind of hard to completely say no phone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there is a concept called sleep hygiene that can improve sleep. Could you talk about what sleep hygiene is and what steps athlete can apply? Because we talk about the reasons now, there are some solutions to it. So let's talk about solutions.
Yeah. So sleep hygiene is one of the things that many people, I think, um, take for granted. And it's some simple things you can do at home. And basically, sleep hygiene refers to sleep-centered habits that can improve your sleep quality, sleep quantity, and the latency, which is meaning how long it takes you to fall asleep. Um, One of the things, these are kind of obvious you may think about, but it's one of the things that I really encourage people to actually go home and look at and really see if this is happening in their bedroom, or if they can make steps to make these happen. So one thing is making sure that your bedroom is a cool, dark and quiet place. If you're traveling, or even in our case at our house, we use a white noise machine just in everyday life. We turn a fan on, but it helps keep the room cool. If you're traveling, you can use a white noise machine, or there's an app on your phone actually that makes white noise. You can bring a small fan or even earplugs. So making sure that your bedroom is cool. The drop in your body temperature is one thing that helps trigger sleep also. So cooling of your room is super helpful. Using your bedroom only for sleep. So this is making sure that you keep your TVs you're not sitting in bed and watching TV for an hour or two, that you kind of watch TV in well, we call it TV room, but everybody has their own family room, whatever. Your computers, your phones in bed. My favorite tip is don't put your phone next to your bed. Like I said, try and put it in the kitchen, or outside my bedroom. It makes me get up. It makes me not look at my phone before I go to bed. And it also helps me not look at my phone first thing in the morning. The next tip is making sure you have a consistent bedtime and wake up time. Your body really likes patterns. It likes habits. It likes consistency. This also helps with the release of melatonin. So making sure you try and stick with a consistent bedtime and wake up time. As Nilhan talked about, let's reducing blue light exposure. It obviously affects your ability to produce melatonin. And interestingly, the CEO of Netflix mentioned that their biggest competitor is actually sleep. So coming from a company that prides on getting people to binge on stuff, their biggest competitor is actually sleep. And as we've discussed many a times, looking at limiting your caffeine or looking at when you intake caffeine, because sleep and nutrition, the lack of sleep and the lack of nutrition can always be a reason that people use caffeine. So looking at those, but also limiting your caffeine, because it does take time to leave your system. And I think another part that people overlook is it's okay to nap. If you like napping or if you can nap, it's best to keep a nap between 30 to 90 minutes, and between 1 and 4 p.m. actually seems to be the ideal time so that it doesn't affect your sleep later in the day. And if you're an athlete, this is really something interesting. If you take a nap after practice when you're trying to learn a new skill, it can actually help your body retain what you learned in practice and help you be able to connect new neurons and new motor patterns much quicker by taking a nap after maybe like a challenging technique working cycle. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But I'll leave you with my favorite tip, and that is making sure you get out in the morning and get some morning sunshine. So when you first wake up, if it's not sunny, as soon as it gets sunny, but if you wake up with the sun, make sure you open the windows or walk outside, take a deep breath, and just kind of get about 5 to 10 minutes of morning sunshine. Can be really good for your body, but also for helping you have good night's sleep. So I think those are mine. Did I miss anything in there, Nilham, or is there anything else you want to add on that section?
Your favorite happens to be my favorite too.
Morning sunshine?
Yes, morning sunshine is my favorite too.
One
too. Important fact is you and I, we live in sunshiny countries and we get a lot of sunshine. But I read that, I think it was from Huberman's podcast, if I remember correctly, even if it's a cloudy day, the lux, basically the strength of the light of the sun is pretty strong. So if you still think it's cloudy and I don't see sun, it's still good to go out. Even it's cloudy, you still get sunshine. If you live in a country that is cloudy, the sun is still there for you. So it's good to get morning sunshine, even though it's cloudy.
I agree with you on that. And since we're talking about sleep hygiene and sleep things to help people sleep better, what do you have like a go-to supplement?
Of course, because I'm a pharmacist. How can I? And I'm sure our listeners were waiting for this moment. I think most of the listeners will think that we are going to say melatonin is our favorite supplement, but it's a big no. Because most people think it's not my favorite. Of course,
not mine either.
Undermining the impact of melatonin. We spoke about how it works in our body, but supplementing melatonin is not going to solve your sleep issues, because it's usually helpful for jet lag, for travelers, or if you're on a night shift. What is my favorite supplement? I would say magnesium glycinate.
Yeah.
Magnesium is really important for athletes, basically for muscle health. And basically, magnesium is in almost 500 metabolism pathways of our body. So it's like a magic molecule, in my opinion. But particularly magnesium glycinate form has a higher absorption. So your body absorbs and uses it more when it's in this form. And this additional glycine has been shown to help sleep and relaxation. So I recommend athletes, also general population, to use magnesium glycinate 1 hour prior to sleep, so that your body goes into a relaxed state and you sleep more comfortably in a relaxed state. What is your favorite supplement, Jess?
I'm going to be a team magnesium with you, but since you've already took that, there are some other ones that I do recommend beyond or instead of melatonin. I'm a big glycine powder fan. Glycine is, again, very calming and relaxing. It's part of the magnesium glycinate. You do get a glycine molecule in that, but using just pure glycine powder. Inositol, I'm a big fan of, seeing a lot of more information come out of that, especially with women, and that it definitely helping. And my most common go-to after magnesium is the amino acid L-theanine. Can definitely be very calming. It helps support the formation of neurotransmitters. So that is usually magnesium, and then an L-theanine product are probably my go-tos for helping with sleep. As you were talking earlier, you were talking about the Formula One racers. I know you kind of enjoy this topic, but what are some interesting things you found athletes do to improve their sleep besides Formula One racers?
There are teams that are using sleep coaches. So I found out
That's awesome.
this sleep expert, sleep coach is a British sleep coach called Nick Littlehales. So he's basically employed by many teams, and he's known as the man who showed Cristiano Ronaldo how to sleep. So basically teams particularly employ sleep coaches, and they implement systems like sleeping pods in the clubs to support athletes. And again, Nick Littlehales also supported Team Skies from Tour de France, and he created this sleep kit for cyclists. And basically in between this 3-week long race, one day to another, these sleep kits, for example, like every day they get their lines washed so that they get the relaxation feeling of feeling a bit more like home. It's an individualized sleep kit for each cyclist. So I find it quite interesting. But it's a bit fancy, of course, for all athletes. But I think the recommendations we shared can already go a long way for all the athletes to optimize their sleep.
Now, I mean, I know some of the teams use some fancy tools like sleep pods and all different types of products that maybe not all of us can access or afford. So for all athletes, I think it's really important to master the basics. Like you said, sleep. And then the next one I feel like that most people overlook and underestimate is the skill of recovery using nutrition. So do you want to give us a little more insight into like nutrition as a recovery tool?
I think, for example, nutrition is another discipline in sports, in my opinion.
Yep.
It's truly a skill. And post-exercise recovery has been a hot topic in sports nutrition. We could record an entire episode about it. We would possibly hosting a sports nutritionist in the upcoming episodes would be a good idea.
Probably, very good idea.
Yeah, for now, let's focus on the basics and the foundations. Athletes always wonder how much they eat, when they should eat, when to take carbs and to take proteins. So they optimize recovery through refueling, rehydration, and enhancing protein synthesis for repairing their muscles and adapting to the training. It's a very unique and individualized topic, in my opinion. So it's hard to say one size fits all approach, but let's give the general understanding to support our listeners. Yes. And one thing that is true for all athletes, your pre-workout starts as soon as you recover from your training session. So if you have a continuous training schedule, that's very important to get into the next workout session revitalized, and basically you will perform well. So there are specific goals for recovery nutrition, and this is basically planned, your recovery nutrition planned accordingly. So first, after exercise or race, you got to replenish your liver and muscle glycogen stores. which is used up during your physical activity. Then you have to rehydrate yourself and replace the electrolytes you lose when sweating. We are going to come to that point in a while about hydration. And that with proper nutrition, you assist rebuilding or growth or repair or your muscle tissues stimulated during exercise, because you get into the anabolic basically development phase once you finish that exercise. So your body grows after, and you need to feed your body to recover from or grow from that exercise. Carbohydrates are particularly the most important macronutrient for athletes. Their primary fuel resource for high intensity exercises is carbs. Consuming carbohydrates during and after exercise can help replenish glycogen stores, which are depleted during prolonged exercise. It's really depending on which exercise and how long the duration of your exercise. But again, there is no one size fits all. Protein is also essential for recovery, as it provides the building blocks for muscle tissue repair and growth. And about recovery nutrition, I can also consider adding antioxidant fruits, for example, such as blueberries, to any post-workout recovery, for example, shake, because it can help you relieve the oxidative stress that happens in your body due to intense exercise. And I love blueberries. I keep adding them as soon as I have access to them, of course, to my post-workout recovery shake. And do you have any favorite recovery drink, snack, or food, Jess?
I actually don't. It kind of varies for me based on when I train, what time of day. I'm not like a consistent, I train sometimes in the morning, sometimes in the midday, sometimes later in the evening. And I don't have like a specific one because it bases on like what I ate before and what meal's coming up and if it's lunch or dinner or just need a recovery snack. So I don't really have like a favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Anything chocolate I will take, but I don't really have like a favorite go-to.
Okay, yeah, that explains there is no one size fits all very clearly.
Definitely not.
And I also recently read a research that, for example, it's very common to see as soon as, for example, they drop the weight, some athletes started drinking their protein shakes. According to research, it really doesn't make a huge change whether you consume your, for example, protein drink before and after.
Right.
Of course, for example, if you haven't eaten anything, consuming as soon as you finish your exercise, maybe this is good. But I understood from the research that it's also not a must. You don't
I
have
agree.
fixed timing that you have to jump into your protein shake immediately after recovery. Again, it really depends on each athlete and the exercise and the duration. We commonly see athletes not eating the right calories to meet their goals, either over or under eating. That doesn't help the performance goals. And we are in an industry that promotes an aggressive and one-size-fits-all approach to post-exercise nutrition. In fact, again, as both of us said, an optimal approach is individual to each session and each athlete. We recommend you to work with a specialized sports nutritionist, and we can promise that we would host a sports nutritionist to discuss the topic in the upcoming episodes. And we really can't talk about nutrition without talking about hydration. So, hydration, over to you, Jess.
Oh, hydration. This is probably one of the questions I get the most working with athletes is about hydration. How much do they need to hydrate? Why do they need to hydrate? And does energy drinks count as hydration?
Mhm.
That's probably the most
Oh,
common. But hydration is also a very critical component to recovery, as most people don't realize that dehydration, even in small amounts, can impair recovery and can lead to like muscle cramps, fatigue, and decreased performance. I mean, it doesn't take a lot to cause that. I always like to explain it when I'm talking to like my kid, they're like high schoolers. I usually try to explain their muscles as being like rubber bands, and you know how when you get a nice fresh rubber band, it like moves and it stretches and it contracts and it goes back really easily. But yet when you have a rubber band that's slightly like dried out a little bit, you start to stretch it, it doesn't go back as quickly. It like starts to tear a little bit. And I usually try and use that example when I'm talking to kids about like what your body does when it gets dehydrated. It just doesn't respond as well. Um, and then the other thing I like to talk about with hydration is electrolytes. Obviously, both of us living in very hot climates. When we exercise, you lose water, but you also lose electrolytes through sweating and breathing. And oftentimes you can see that when you see like when you're wearing dark colored clothes and you have like a white sweat line, that is actually just the electrolytes, like the salt and the sodium and the chloride. So like a salt on your skin. So electrolytes are special minerals that help your brain, your heart, your gut, your muscles send and receive electrical signals. Electrolytes are critical for athletic performance as well as just plain biological functioning. I like to tell people like in order to get water into the cells, you can drink all the water you want, but if you don't have electrolytes, they help your body like transport the water from what you drink into your cells. So you need electrolytes. Sodium and chloride are the electrolytes we lose the most. Losing sodium and chloride can reduce power, strength, agility, skills, and concentration, all of which are essential for athletes. Additional electrolytes you lose when you sweat are actually calcium, magnesium, and phosphate, which are all important for muscle health and post workout muscle repair. In even the best of us can lose our edge on games, training sessions, or races if your electrolytes are low. So you can replace electrolytes through a couple different ways. My favorite, I'm always usually one that's food first. So if you're usually, I usually tell people they pre-workout use like pretzels because they have salt on them, post-workout too, but you can use protein drinks, you can use sports drinks, you can use chocolate milk is even good, or water rich foods like watermelon, oatmeal, and yogurt. This is going to help you replace both the water, the electrolytes, and actually give you some sugars. I mean, I feel like we can't go the discussion of how important hydration is without giving the listeners some actual tools or skills or ways to actually apply this. So
there is one method that can help athletes to measure the fluid loss and keep it in a hydrated state. So basically, step on the scale both before and after your workout. Make sure you are not dressed and you have an empty bladder to get the most accurate results. You should avoid losses surpassing 2% of your body weight. So if you lose more than 2%, you're going to get the negative impacts of being dehydrated. So this can be the most accurate, and it's basically used by the teams as well to measure how much fluid you lose so that you can replace as part of your recovery.
So that's not a lot. That's
No,
2% is not a lot in the
no.
body to be losing to actually start having impacts on performance. The American College of Sports Medicine actually came out with a consensus statement and kind of gave some guidelines for athletes in order to be able to kind of apply it, but it definitely in the end will have to be individualized. So the American College of Sports Medicine recommends for recovery hydration is to consume basically 125 to 150% of the body weight loss. So roughly, if you want to kind of do it, it's 2 glasses of water per half a kilo loss. If you kind of want to do that, this will involve athletes again having to weigh themselves and figuring out before and after how much body weight they lost in fluids. I think for most people, this is something you can do, maybe not you don't have to do it every single day, but if you training in the heat and you're starting like a preseason or you're starting a sport, is trying to get a feel for how hot it is, how hard you're training, and how much fluid you're losing. But the American College of Sports Medicine also recommends consuming a carbohydrate and electrolyte drink during intense activities that last longer than an hour. The ideal formula, and it kind of, just to give you a reference point, and we're not sponsored or anything by them, but Powerade fits this kind of ratio. Is the ideal formula is drinking about 600 to 1200 milliliters of solution, and that solution should contain about 4 to 8% of carbohydrates per 100 mLs, and also include a half to 0.7 grams of sodium. So I know that's super, super confusing, and it can be kind of hard to understand, but Powerade, Gatorades, you're looking for, as your intensity and duration of exercise goes longer, you need the carbohydrates in the drinks to help replace the sugar loss, and you also need the sodium for the electrolyte loss. So making sure you do have carbohydrates in your drinks and sodium. Sometimes it is creating your own of adding carbs and sodium packets, but definitely making sure you're looking at both of these. Nilhan, have you, I know being international and not using always the American College of Sports Medicine, do you find any other organizations out there that can give some guidance or some recommendations?
Sure, sure. Well, there is one aspect that we can also talk about is also exercising or competing in the heat.
Yeah.
We are recording this episode in summer in the northern hemisphere, and currently this is a hot topic basically, and we are in the hottest days of summer, so
True.
maybe helpful. And of course, well, southern hemisphere athletes can also benefit from it when it's the time for them. But International Olympic Committee has recommendations to avoid hypohydration, and basically they use the same ratio.
Okay.
You should avoid losing less than 2% of your body weight during the periods of training in the heat. So it's the same approach.
Okay.
You should, the idea, of course, exercising in heat, you sweat more, you lose more electrolytes, and this means you should increase your fluid consumption and electrolyte consumption, but it should be progressive. This means you just don't consume more fluids on the competition day acutely, because it can just increase your urine output. So this may also limit your performance. The general guidance the IOC, International Olympic Committee, gives is, of course, again, this is very personalized for each athlete, but this is a general guidance to start with. So athletes should consume at least 2 liters of fluids per day. If they exercise 1 more hour, they are going to add 1 more liter to their fluid consumption. And for example, they have an increase of 5 centigrade increase in the ambient temperature above 21.5 centigrades, they should add 1 more liter to their consumption. So for example, if an athlete is running 1 hour, he or she should consume 3 liters minimum. And you should also take into consideration your sweat rate and your health conditions. So again, this is a very general guidance to understand. We always recommend you to work with a sports nutritionist for your specific hydration plan.
Yeah, I feel like it's important for people to realize hydration isn't something you can do just right before you start training or just after. It is a full day and days before. It is something you are constantly, I think it fits along with sleep and nutrition, is that it's a skill, and it's very personalized, and it's something that's always changing and adjusting, but it's not something you can just be like, okay, I'm going to drink all my fluids right now and I'm hydrated. So sleep, nutrition, and hydration are the foundations of recovery. I think these are skills that many of us overlook and underappreciate, and skills and something that we can take for granted. It's something we can always work on, we can always improve. but I believe that they are the tip of the iceberg in recovery and the importance of recovery for an athlete. Next, I think, is managing stress and your body's response to stress, which is exercise, competition, and exciting. We are going to dive into the recovery aspect using the nervous system in our next episode.
Yeah, that is quite exciting. So we added a new recovery part to our episodes. That's going to be a really interesting content. And in this episode, we busted again a myth that reaching an athletic potential can only depend on the exercise plan. It's a big no. If you would like to keep your performance at a sustained level, or you'd like to increase it, you would like to need to recover like a pro. Today we try to give you professional tips to help you with your recovery, and it has many aspects. You have to make a choice between different recovery strategies, and you have to combine them. So we hope that this episode can help you doing that. As sports pharmacists, it is our mission to provide you with accurate and evidence-based information to optimize your health and performance. And remember, when it comes to your health and well-being choices, always consult with your physician or pharmacist, prioritize your safety, and always make informed decisions. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to sharing more valuable scientific and actionable insights in our next episode.